Hello, in this tutorial we will take a look how to make fully procedural rope using a Blender geometry nodes. We will also make this UI for a rope, so you can change the parameters and don't need to look at the nodes again. You can change the type of a curve also, it doesn't really matter, it will just work with any curve object you want, and you will have full control about anything which is in this node group. So you can change width of the rope itself, or width of the roads, number of the roads. You can change number of these fibers. Yeah, you can change subdivision of the curve, so you can make it low poly or high poly. You can change resolution of a low poly curve to and anything you want. Just simply you have control about everything which in this group is. Same works for the twisting or number of a twist, multiplying of a twist, and everything else. So let's take a look at it. So let's begin. We add a curve, it doesn't matter which curve. I use, for instance, Bezier. We need geometry nodes, so we use geometry nodes, and we add geometry nodes. I call them rope. Now I make first a profile of the curve. So I use curve circle. This circle will say us how big is the radius of our rope and how many rods of the curve will be there. Přeřeky nejsou špatný, prostě to. So let's have a look at it. Boo! Let's begin. So we need a curve. It doesn't matter which one. I choose path in this time, and I need a geometry node editor, and I need geometry nodes. I call them rope. So now I make a profile of the curve. So we use curve circle. This circle will define radius of a curve and number of rods. So 3 rods, 4 rods, and so on. You will see. Now we need instance on points, and we have points. We don't have the object to instance, so we use another circle with, for instance, 8 or 10 points. You don't need too much of them, and you can see width of the curve, width of the roads, and number of the roads. Now we need to use it as a curve profile. So we use mesh, curve to mesh, and we take our original curve, and this we plug in a profile, and it causes error because output of instance on points are instances. So we need to realize them. We'll realize them, and you can see this is our rope. We'll make it much smaller. This looks fine to me. So now we have rope which affects the curve. We can change the curve in edit mode by deleting it and put there any other curve. So now we want to add twist to our curve. So we add curve tilt, set curve tilt, and we will set it by index. I personally like to have more control over my setup, so I add there multiply node, multiple math, not add but multiply, and this can control how many twists are there. You can multiply the base value because the index itself is now small. But I will leave it to 1 because this is only multiplier. It's not the twisting thing which will twist it itself. So now we will add here a resample. That resample, because if you multiply it too much, you can find that there are more twists than here or here, and we will eliminate it by the resample, because the resample node adds between the start and end of a curve new points. It changes these 4 points for its 4 points in this shape, or how many points we will tell it to. So we use resample, and it calls that the distances between the points is equal, so the number of a twist will be equal between every point. So we can use counts or we can use length. You can enlarge it or make it smaller, it depends. And this is for multiplying. Again, as I said, leave it to 1 because it's only multiplier, it's additional control. And now we don't want to break curve like this because small length. We want to subdivide curve. Now you can see it's much smoother. I basically use 2 cuts. And because the mesh itself is also low poly, so I add subdivision surface. It's good like this surface, not subdivide. Surface, because if you switch on subdivision surface, you have low poly curve whenever you set the low poly curve is, and if you turn it on, you have high poly curve or smoothed curve. So you can easily make 2 versions and bake them on self. Now we have a twist control, we have a source of a curve. This node we will use to make a UI, but if you want to look at UI and you are happy with this, you can skip it in the video, but now I will show how to make fibers too. So we take our stream from a subdivision surface, because even if this is 0, this node is where the shape of the curve is. If we put that, for instance, 2, this place is where is mesh unsubdivided. So the points would be inside the object, which is not supposed to be a problem all the time, but can be sometimes if in extreme angles and such thing. So this will eliminate this problem. So distribute points on faces in this time. This will add points in our curve. If you want to see it, you can use join geometry and join this with our subsurface output, and you see it's put it on the faces of the curve. So this will control how many fibers we will have. Now we need to instance on points again, and we need to think what we will instance on the points, and we will instance curve line. Now you can see the lines aiming straight up. So we in this version are lucky, we have this rotation parameter, so we don't need to make any math to solve it. We just add it there and it's solved. You can control length of the fibers, but we will make it random by random attribute later in this section. Now we will distort them, we will make curls and any other thing on it, but we don't want to do it here, because if we do it here, the curls will be same on each element because they are instanced. So you can do it, because if you want to have set up more, let's say it's easier for your computer to do it like this, but I will not do it like this. I will resample it here, because if we resample it before the instancing, we will resample only this one curve and not number of instances we have here. I will leave it to 10. You can have also control about this, but I don't personally touch this setting any time. So we will instance on points. We will realize instances. You will see why in later. And we want to set position. Set position. Set position. So this will be controlled by the noise texture. You can see it do some stuff, but it won't work so well, because it take our original spline, our original rope, and shift the fibers away. So we use factor of a spline parameter. Factor, we will multiply it by our noise texture, because this is a vector. We will use vector math. Now you can see it's making a little difference. So, sorry. Now it's supposed to be, like this, but we don't want to do it on a whole object. So you can see how the curve's now working a little bit, but still doesn't work well. So I add a multiplier. And small numbers of this will make it more where we want it. So this is making it curls, but this make it stay where it's supposed to be. So now still there is one problem. We have the noise on all the object, so we want for each individual element we need this for loop, because this for loop give us ability to affect every single element of a node setup. And this is untransformed curve. This is a transformed curve. There is nothing, because we affect points, and we don't want to affect points. We want to affect splines, because we have multiple splines. And now you can see each of them is different. Now we need radius to the curve, so we can use again this setup if you want, or I found this little node, curve to tube, which is kind of helpful in it. It can add there this width, but this is again, this will be used as a multiplier of our width of the fibers. It will be not the main control. We will use set curve radius, and this radius will be based on, again, factor of a spline parameter and it will be multiplied. Oh no, multiplied. It will be changed, because you can see it's smaller at the root and bigger at the top. We need to reverse that. You can use invert, but for me I will use color ramp. The color ramp is not because it's better, but you have more control over the whole object, so you can move it by hand and make it smaller on separate places. You can make smaller even the root part by this, because this is, again, as I said, multiplier. It will make this super large, so we will have this number small and this number to control. So again, the color ramp node is used only because it's a more visual way to do it. You can use map range node and it will do the same thing, but this is more visual. You don't need to imagine what the numbers do. You can just simply see it directly now and how it affects the curve itself. So now we have fibers. We can change their amount if we want. We want, as I said earlier, we want them to have a different length, so we add random attribute. And this random attribute, I only want to affect the length, so I will place their zeros, and I want them to be to have some length all the time, not only not to be zero sized. So I will add, for instance, 0.4 at least, and there, for instance, 0.1, 2, doesn't matter. And now you can see they have different length, and you can change numbers, you can change how curl they are. So you can play with these numbers. So we can also add here smooth shading if we want. But you know, on these curves they are so small, so you won't see the difference. And if you want them to be high poly, you can change this to length, and they will look much better. So now if I change this parameter, it will work. But I think it's easier to control with, for instance, the count. Be careful, because we realized those instances. This is real object, so it will be much more heavy to hold for the computer if you do it like this. But you have more variability in those fibers, and you have maybe more realistic rope if you want. And as you can see there in the right lower corner, it don't take too much memory. This geometry is just small. So now we can take a look on control. How to control it? We have this group select. If you don't see it, you can drag it from right side, or it's under the end panel as always. And now we take the parameters of our curve. So we want to duplicate this. You don't have to, but it will be much easier to control, to do not make an absolute mess by plugging every single stream from the node setup to this point, the point node, sorry. So I take this parameter, this parameter, this parameter, and this parameter for start, which maybe seems like a good idea, but if you look there, it's definitely cannot end up like this, because who knows what this means if it's have same names. So you can look there in the group sockets, you can double click on it and change the name. So road number, the number of roads, rope radius. This one is a road resolution, and road radius. So you see, more rods, more width. Like for instance, this can look without the fibers like some steel cable or something, or some coaxial cable. Yeah, of course you can add the caps there if you want them. So this is all for this. Now I will, I won't need to copy it. I will add length as a twist and twist multiplier, and also subdivide of a curve. So you can see this stream goes through the node. It can be a little messy if we don't use multiple group inputs, but you can definitely, it doesn't matter, it's all up to you. So again, rename it twist, twist multiplier, and curve resolution, because this tells us how how smooth the curve is actually really is. Be careful with those. Now we maybe want this subdivision surface again, because we want to decide whenever the mesh is high poly or low poly. So I add some here level. If you want to use some creasing attributes, you can, but I won't, so I will not add it there. Mesh subdivision. Mesh subdivision. And I will use like 1 is enough for it. Now again, I copy it, I put it there. I take density as the amount of fibers and the more fibers amount, and I take length of fibers. So and this fibers length. Now we take also fiber resolution, and maximal and minimal length of fibers. So we can take those and those. Use min and max fibers length. Now again, I will copy it, put it there, take out my scale, so curve scale or curling, multiplier of curling, this is the only attribute you I think need to go in, but maybe we can not maybe we can add custom ports to it. We don't need any of this. Yeah, we maybe want this attribute too as fibres. Wait, fibres radius multiplier, and we can maybe add it up there to the fibers settings. And now if we want to control those parameters, you see there are positions, there are also this attribute, so we can make custom ports like input and another input, have two sockets. We want to use some drivers, so we can move with this one. Maybe we don't need to move with this one, but this position, so we copy it as a driver. Sorry, we will copy value of the input as a driver, and we will put it in some value, maybe no in some value. So we take this, copy it as a attribute, as a driver, as a new driver, and we will put it here, this driver. So I make some research and found that if you want to drive the color in a color ramp node, you find that you can add driver here, but you cannot here, and even in a driver editor you cannot just work with these values. So if you want to take out these values to control them using your improvised UI, so you need to use color ramp. As I said earlier, we use color ramps because they are more visual and they are much more easier to imagine what you're actually doing. The map range nodes is literally the same, but only with numbers. So we have input value, output value, and this is our original parameters. So if we change it, for instance, here to 1 and 0, it will reverse the values. But I won't do it like this. I will do it as we done it before. We put min to 1 and max to 0, because we will control it by just this value. But it doesn't matter. But it's kind of unintuitive to control it by this value, but also you can control it by this value. It really depends. It doesn't matter at all after all. So, and again, if you want to use our little driver trick, you can take a socket, copy as a driver, and add it, paste as a driver. So you can use it instead of making no, not this one, not this one, but by making this one. Yeah, this is our parameter. So if you don't like that it is this gray, you can just take it and put it in here, and it will do the same thing. And last thing we maybe want is to add some material control. So it's good to have at least some let's say organization in the nodes you're using, because otherwise it's big mess. That's why we're making this UI, because we don't want to actually get into this mess again if we don't really need to do it. So I put here two material set nodes. Set material, and here and here. If you don't want to color the rope and the fibers separately, you can put this just here and override all color of all the object at once. But this is really individual thing, so it's up to you. You just can use one node or two nodes. It really depends on you. I'm in this moment will use this version. By the way, this is just selecting scaling and scaling into the 0, but that's why they aligned. And I put there two inputs. I reverse them because I want to have my main rope input here. So this is rope material and fibers material. Fibers material. So now you can plug there any material you want. For instance, the kit material from the kitty I have there before, with subsurface scattering and everything else, which is absolutely perfect for ropes like this, as you can see. So now this is almost the end. I forgot on caps. I add there another node. Group input. I just take the fill caps and put there some new socket, again plus new socket, and or you can just drag and drop it here and then move it up there, so you can add closer so cups, or you can just switch them off. It really depends on you again. So now you have this setup, in which you can see now it's not that complicated as it maybe looks at a first look, but it's just few nodes and few parameters that we take from it. So we have the base of the profile curve, we have this twisting and bending part of the curve. This is just making a curve, mixing the profile with the curve as it is. This is adding multiple polygons, so it's making subdivision surface. It's making a high poly version, or it can be just switch off by changing this to 0. Here we have our fiber generators, so we generate points, we put there these lines here. We realize them because we need to work with separate splines, so we use this for each loop, which allow us to work with every single fiber separately. This is our multiplier for curling. This is adding a noise texture which set how the fibers are curled. This is this tell us where the curve is really, because without this it just don't work. If we use only this value, you can see it jump anywhere and behave like crazy. This just help us to make it work. And this is again my multiplier, which help our curve to stay where it's supposed to stay, because if it's 1, it's making it straight, or minus is back, so it's something around 0, but not absolute 0, because then they will be straight. And there's a set curve radius. By this we only setting where is the width and where is not. You can play with this more if you want, it doesn't matter. It's again another thing which is totally up to you. And now this is a curve to tube. This just making a tube from the curves. You can use this profile again, it's up to you, as I said here. It's after all it will be kept and it's mesh, so it will be the same. And this setting material for every separate for fibers separately and for the rope separately. and this is joining both geometry at once and output the geometry to our viewport. So we don't need to take in the nodes again. I can calmly just switch off those nodes and can play with my splines and don't care about what happens there, because every parameter, every aspect of this curve, we at least I think we take out of it and make this little UI, which you know from other modifiers, and you now can be even a little more familiar with how some of the new geometry modifiers came up there, because if you look in this, you can find that they make, for instance, instances here. They make this instance on points with and prepare them for us, so we don't need to still remake them or input them in the projects or in the default settings, so they are there defaultly. So now you can see how those are made, and that's all. I will link you some tutorial about how to make materials for it, because there are multiple tutorials for this particular thing, but I think that the most of them are not as procedural and don't speak about how to make, for instance, even the UI, even the ability to change parameters, which this setup can. So I aim mainly on this, on how to make the rope as much procedurally. Because if you work with the geometry nodes, it's, for me, it doesn't matter. No, it doesn't make sense to use them if you don't want to have procedural asset. If the asset after which you done is just a static mesh with no static mesh which is unchangeable, it's, I don't understand why to use the nodes for it. There are some stuff, like some geometrical stuff, some cases like working with splines and so on, but I think that geometry nodes and procedural workflows are mostly for making stuff easier, like making easier to control and making control things, or to control how your rope looks like. So if you, for instance, want to make steel pipes, well, not pipes directly, but you want to make some steel cable, you can do it like this. You can use it as a tunnel or something. Yeah, you can make it much more wider. Just change some parameters and you can figure it out how to make a whole thing look much much more as you want it to look like. So this is it. So I'll take care and do something interesting with this setup.